morning panning in the stream for gold, surrounded by the rising mountains. Old prospector with a tale for two, he brushed around in the pan, pointing out what lay within was ordinary sand. He began with his story about 20 years before, and a younger man who sought his fortune. With a tear or two he told of searching for his treasure, but making known the gold he sought was ordinary pleasure. There were years of doing without, and there were years of plenty. I started thinking that life was never steady, excepting when the bills came in and I had no money to pay. Whiskey had never tasted better ordinarily. Concluded his story as it filled the air with a laugh, saying how he found the Lord and Savior, and how he found the river of life by which his day unfolds, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Through His word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. believe upon his promises. Through his word we can see his wonders, signs and miracles of his love. We can return his love with devotion, standing on his word before all men. We are his beloved and his chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon his promises. Trust in God, believe upon his promises. Believe upon his...
Well, hello, I'm Mark Wallace with True North Studio, and today the topic is life, death, and second chances. You know, have you ever been given a second chance? Any of us who have ever blown it, done something really stupid, really messed up, have enjoyed a second chance. It's what you do with those second chances that counts. You know, have you ever been to jail, committed murder, lived the life of a prostitute, were sold into the slave trade, participated in human trafficking, were part of a gang, got drunk and passed out in front of your kids? Have you ever committed suicide or suffered from erectile dysfunction? Well, besides ED, those are just a few of the shenanigans lived out by most Bible heroes before they did great things for God. God gave them all a second chance, and He's done the same for you. If you think about it, the Word of God is filled with second chance terminology. Forgiveness is a second chance at love. Mercy is a second chance after we really blow it. Hope is a second chance for a better future. Believing gives us a second chance at getting what is rightfully ours. Grace is our undeserved second chance. Healing is a second chance at wellness. The renewed mind is our second chance mentally. Being born again is our second chance spiritually, and the gathering together is our second chance eternally. A second chance is not a do-over. Nobody gets that. You don't get to live your entire life over again, but you do get a fresh start. Quote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." Heraclitus. A second chance is a reset. It allows you to take it up a notch, to take it to the next level. A second chance is life giving us another shot. It's God telling us, let's try it one more time from the top. Let's look at a few famous second chances in history. Now, Albert Einstein didn't speak until he was 4. He didn't read until he was 7. People thought he was mentally handicapped, but he kept improving. Einstein went on to win the Nobel Prize and change the face of modern physics. Thomas Edison's teachers told him that he was too stupid to learn anything. He was fired from his first 2 jobs for not being productive enough. Even as an inventor, Edison failed 1,000 times before he finally invented the light bulb. Henry Ford failed at business 5 times, was almost penniless, but stuck with his dream and eventually founded the Ford Motor Company. Dr. Seuss had 27 different publishers reject his first book, but he kept writing. Fred Astaire was told by the testing director of MGM that he can't act, can't sing, slightly bald, can dance a little. Astaire went on to become an incredibly successful actor, singer, and dancer. Sadly, he couldn't make his hair grow back. Colonel Sanders was fired from job after job in the 1930s. To get by, he started cooking chicken next to his roadside gas station. Travelers loved it. He worked for 20 more years to perfect his secret recipe and thought that maybe someday he could franchise his idea. In the 1950s, He was living on $105 a month. He slept in his car and was rejected more than 1,000 times before finally finding his first business partner. His second chance was finger licking good. A second chance is an opportunity to try again, and maybe again after failing. Quote, anyone can start from now and make a brand new ending. Dr. Carl Bard. People may not believe in you. People may not give you a second chance, but know that God always does, even after you blow it, especially after you blow it. Well, no matter what you've done, even that one thing, know that God is a God of second chances. Now, from shame to fame. The Bible is filled with heroes and villains, and sometimes they're the same person. No chapter in the Bible illustrates a second chance more than Hebrews 11. Thank God for second chances, because sometimes we don't do so well with our first one. This chapter is often called the Believer's Hall of Fame, but it's filled with flawed people like you and me, people who blew it royally, but grabbed a second chance at life and excelled. God gave all these men and women a second chance, and they did something with it. That's why they're listed in Hebrews 11. I need to point out that Hebrews 11 only posts the pretty, Instagram, well-posed, selfie stick side of people's lives. It only shows the spectacular results of their believing. It leaves out all those messy, sticky, in-between details. We all need to know deep in our hearts that even when we blow it, we can get back up and keep moving for God. The believers of Hebrews 11 did. A second chance, used wisely, will take us from epic fails to epic tales. Let's take a look at how a few Bible greats graduated with honors from the School of Hard Knocks. Hebrews 11:4 tells us that God accepted Abel's sacrifice, but it doesn't show us that Abel was murdered by his own brother a short time later. Genesis 5 tells us that. Verse 7 of Hebrews 11 tells us that by building and supplying the ark, Noah saved the Christ line. It doesn't tell us about Noah getting drunk and passing out in his vineyard. It seems to leave out the part about the unusual abuse Noah and his wife suffered at the hands of their adult son Ham. Genesis 6 fills in all those sordid details. Verse 8 through 12 tells us about Abraham and Sarah having a child in their old age and enjoying the land of plenty that God promised them. It doesn't mention that Abraham, to save his own skin, trafficked his wife Sarah twice to local kings. Genesis 12 and 20 fills out that journal entry. Verse 20 says that God blessed Jacob and set him up for great things to come. However, it never mentioned that earlier in his life, he had disguised himself and tricked his father into giving him the birthright and blessing that legally belonged to his older brother Esau. Genesis 27 exposes that fraud. Verse 22 of Hebrews 11 mentions the wealthy and powerful Joseph. It never tells us that his own brothers sold him into slavery when he was a child, nor does it mention his time in an Egyptian prison because he was falsely accused of rape. Genesis 37 and 41 pulls that curtain back. Verse 24 through 29 speaks highly about the many accomplishments of Moses, like freeing slaves and splitting the Red Sea. It fails to mention that his mom gave him up as an infant, nor does it mention that he murdered an Egyptian in cold blood and buried him in a shallow grave, and then he fled the country. Exodus 2 uncovers that crime. Verse 31 talks about Rahab being a hero for God because she hid some Hebrew spies so Israel could take over her country. It never mentions about her being a prostitute and a traitor to her own people. Joshua 2 and James 2 turn on that red light. Verse 32. Then there's the war hero named Barak, who refused to go into battle unless the prophetess Deborah rode with them and led the charge. Judges 4 shows us that. Oops. Verse 32 mentions Samson. We all know about his otherworldly strength. We may not remember that he enjoyed prostitutes and ended up killing himself so he could take out even more enemy at the same time. Judges 16 unhides that little detail. Verse 32 of Hebrews 11 mentions Jiptak, who was a brilliant military leader in Israel. It doesn't mention that he was once such a bad teen, he was kicked out of the house and started one of the worst gangs in Israel. Judges 11 tips us off to that. Verse 32 also references King David, the giant slayer. It seems to leave out the part where David wanted a certain woman so badly that he had her husband killed in battle so he could have sex with her and steal his wife. 2 Samuel 12 pulls the covers off of that one. The New Testament believers are not much better in the shame-fame game. The half-brothers of Jesus, James and Jude, wrote the first two epistles to help the early Christians handle deadly persecution. But did you know that before the day of Pentecost, they treated Jesus like he was out of his mind and devil-possessed? Look at Mark 3:21. Peter quickly became the first strong leader of the Christian church and wrote two epistles. Did you know that during the capture and torture of the Christ, he cut a man's ear off and he denied he even knew Jesus? Finally, the Apostle Paul received more revelation than any man since Moses. He changed the world into the one we now enjoy. We forget that he was once a paid assassin sent to kill Christians. Paul was a hired gun. Every one of us has done a few despicable deeds that we aren't proud of, except maybe you. We've also been forgiven, and we've all done some, and we've also gone on to do some spectacular things for God and His people. Like the people of Hebrews 11, we too have wisely used our second chances. I love the quote by John Wayne. "A man deserves a second chance, but keep an eye on him." Imagine if God inspired someone to write down all your highlights and lowlights. What if God published all the good and bad things you've done for all the world to see? Well, my lowlight reel may read something like this. You know Mark is a pretty nice, encouraging guy and a kind of good teacher of God's Word. Most of you didn't know that he left home at 16 for no good reason. His long red hair flowed down to his belt. He cut a swath of trouble across the Lone Star State and ended up in not a few Texas jails. Once he even broke out of a jail in a town called Watauga. He had revolvers and shotguns poked in his ribs multiple times, usually by the police. He was hated because of the way he looked and the things he did. When he finally turned 17, he turned on to God. He cut his hair, quit his wild friends, moved back home, and over a few days read the Bible cover to cover twice. He went on to finish high school, went to college, looked diligently for a group to live the Word with, found one, got married to the beautiful Josephine. He's never stopped looking for Christians who want to live the Word and walk with the power of God, like he first read about in Acts. He found you, didn't he? We all have a story. None of us have gone through life unscathed. I think that nothing is as exciting as watching a comeback. Quote, "We can't run out of second chances, only time." Robin Jones Gunn. The reason the Bible greats have both their good and bad deeds written in the Word of God is to show us that we too can go from worst to first, because God is still a God of second chances. The race is not to the swift. Even the best of us blow it. The great Apostle Paul suffered the same human curse we all do when he said, "The things I want to do, I don't do. And the things I don't want to do, I do." Romans 7:15. Does that sound sort of familiar? Was Paul crying out for a second chance when he said in Romans 7:24 from The Voice, "I am absolutely miserable. Is there anyone who can free me from this body where sin and death reign so supremely?" Ever thought that? Ever wanted to be freed from the fine mess you've gotten yourself into? Sure. Many times. I remember my first time being incarcerated at age 16 and going to sleep on a green metal bunk with no mattress, hoping I would wake up and it would all have been a dream. It wasn't. Wise old Solomon once said, "There is no new thing under the sun," Ecclesiastes 1:9. I say it's time you and I break the gravitational pull of history repeating itself. If people are honest, even the best of humanity flirts somewhere between the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Shame. We all need a second chance. Have you ever noticed that Christians hate the word chance, but love the words second chance? Before we dive deeper into second chances, let's look at the most misused and misquoted verse on chance in the Bible. It'll help us understand what we need to do to break free of mediocrity. No verse in the Bible is used more to mansplain failure than Ecclesiastes 9:11. Ecclesiastes 9:11, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. We use this verse when things don't go right for someone we love, and we want to help them make sense of it, make them feel better. We tell our kids when they lose a game or get screwed out of a job, don't feel so bad, honey. The race doesn't always go to the swift. We make a fragment of Ecclesiastes 9:11 our get out of jail free card. I think it's sort of like dialing 911 because God knows we've had an emergency. Get it, Ecclesiastes 9:11? We say, it's okay, the devil just got in there and messed things up for you. Remember, the race doesn't always go to the swift. Misquoted, this verse helps us take ourselves off the hook when things go terribly wrong, as they sometimes do. After all, the devil made you do it. When Ecclesiastes 9:11 is misquoted, it removes the victory from every failure. It sidesteps the lesson within every loss and makes us weaker. Like passing the buck, it takes your eyes off the ball and makes us forget about that thing that has been chasing us our entire life. Allow me to explain the context of Ecclesiastes 9:1-1. Ecclesiastes 9:1-3. It's a bit dark when it tells us there is one and only one event that happens to the righteous and to the wicked, to the clean and the unclean, to the good and to the bad, and that is death. Verse 4 then goes on to say that a living dog is better than a dead lion. And they hated dogs at that time in Israel. This next verse seems harsh. Ecclesiastes 9:5. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Everyone knows they'll die someday. Solomon says that once you're dead, you know nothing, do nothing, and will eventually be forgotten. Not quite the words we want written on our tombstone. Here lies Mark. He knows nothing, does nothing, and will be forgotten. This next verse is not much better. Hang in there. It's going to take a twist. Ecclesiastes 9:6. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. The dead can't love us anymore, neither can they hate us or be envious. This verse says that once you die, you will never again be part of anything. Harsh. Solomon is building up to the big reveal. The verses up to this point don't leave us all warm and fuzzy, especially if we're grieving over the loss of a loved one. Needless to say, I typically don't use this section when officiating a funeral. Now we're going to get to the chewy caramel center. Solomon almost gets to the point. This is God's answer to knowing we will someday die. Ecclesiastes 9:7-9. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Live the life you've been giving right now. Eat, drink, and be merry. God accepts you the way you are, flaws and all. Your amazing life, the good, the bad, good and bad. God loves everything about you. Verse 8, let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live the best life you can. Put your best foot forward. Do your very best, and for God's sake, think highly of yourself. Verse 9, live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life, of the life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun all the days of thy vanity. For that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. Now, what it's saying is embrace your lover. Find a way to enjoy the life you've been given and enjoy the work you've been given to do. Did you notice he repeated the word vanity? This word vanity doesn't mean you like yourself so much you blow kisses to yourself in the mirror. Vanity is not being a selfie girl. Okay? When I was a child and got a little cocky, my mom used to sing me a little lesson. She'd sing, "I love me, I think I'm grand, I take me to the movie and I hold my hand." This is not the vanity Solomon is talking about. The word vanity translated simply means short-lived or temporary. Our good works or our bad works will only last for a short time, the short time we're alive. Life is fleeting. That's vanity. Now here's a great lead up to that verse 9:11. I just heard this verse used used very well at a memorial service last night. Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. Solomon is telling us by revelation from God that whatever we decide to do, we should give it our best. Put your mind and might into everything you touch, because there's going to be a day that's coming that you won't be able to do much of anything anymore. If you're a writer, then write. If you're an athlete, then run. If you're a singer, then sing like the wind. If you're an inventor, then test out those 1,000 ideas. If you're a healer, then find someone to help. If you're a hell raiser, well, find something else to do. I did. If you're going to take the time to do something, that you're good at, then put your full heart into it, because the grave is waiting for you. Death has been chasing you down since the day you were born. Even Jesus said in John 10:10, "The thief cometh not before to steal and to kill and to destroy." See, that's the devil's passion, to end things for you. The end of John 10:10 tells us that Jesus came to give us a second chance so we could live life more abundantly. Are you beginning to catch the theme here? Live your life fully and with gusto right now. Enjoy the ride now, even the bumpy parts, because time is short. Now, before we reread our theme verse for the big reveal and read Ecclesiastes 9:11, in its entirety, let's jump ahead and take a sneak peek at verse 12. Okay, Ecclesiastes 9:12. For the man also knoweth not his time. As the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and the birds that are caught in the snare, so are the sons of men snared in an evil time, when it falleth suddenly upon them. Nobody knows when they're going to die. The fish don't. Birds don't. Nobody wants to die, not a person, a fish, or a bird. But sadly, we all will. The lesson, the key, the climax is tucked away in verse 11. Solomon, after thinking about our amazing lives, the bumps and the bruises, the lessons, the effort, the good, the bad, and the ugly, he comes back to the sad but eventual end of every life, which is death. He also tells us what to do about it. Verse 11 is far deeper than a pithy quote we use for when our precious child loses a championship soccer game, patting him or her on the head saying, "Remember, the race doesn't always go to the swift." That seems to make sense and take the edge off failure, but it's missing the main point. Verse 11 is far more dramatic than telling your best friend when she doesn't get that job, "Well, sis, the race doesn't always go to the swift. There's a better job waiting for you out there." For this theme verse to pull all the strings together, we need to read the entire verse, not just the first half. Ecclesiastes 9:11, I returned, and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. Here we go. But time and chance happeneth to them all. Time and chance happeneth to them all. The words time and chance in Hebrew simply mean the impact of time. Solomon is telling us that time waits for no one. The lesson in this section is time will catch up to you. So go make your mistakes. Go learn from your failures. Go out there and get fully involved in your one and only life. You're going to lose at times. You're going to get thumped. You're going to get beat at times. But you're going to learn. Sometimes you come out on top and sometimes you won't. Just keep living. So enjoy the hell out of your life. Enjoy the whole enchilada of life, the good times and the bad. Life is both cruel and amazing at the same time. Things may not turn out like you wanted, but for goodness sake, while you've got breath, while you've got your health, even if you don't have your health, while you're still able to move and groove, sing and laugh, dance, hold hands, make love, get out there and live. When you fall, get back up. When you get beat up, try harder next time. When you lose it all, start over, smarter. If you get sick and can't live the way you once did, find some way to give. When you don't get the recognition you deserve, keep working, keep growing, keep iterating, keep pushing. Live your life. Love your life. Love life. Use your second chances wisely. You're going to need them. You will make mistakes. You are going to fail. Loved ones are going to die. But for the love of God, keep getting back up. Keep trying. Keep iterating. Keep transforming until your final day comes. Live like death is chasing you down. If you knew you were going to die in a year, would you change the way you do things? Would you watch as much TV? Would you call your mom more? Would you hold on to your lover tighter? Would you pick back up on those dreams you set aside because you got too busy? You would. You would. That's what wise old Solomon is trying to tell us by revelation. Find a way to live while you are alive. Blotted page of endeavor. I'm going to try to wrap it all up now. I once read a clip from a 1906 Sunday school lesson book that said, God is more ready to forgive the blotted page of endeavor than the blank page of surrender. I love it. You know, that's a one-sentence sermon if I ever heard one. It sort of sums up Ecclesiastes 9:1 into one sentence. That's what parents, pastors, and teachers taught kids way back in the early to mid-1900s. Go out there and get a little dirty. Fall down and for God's sake, get back up and keep moving. When you slip up, get up and keep moving. Make your mistakes, but keep moving. My mom told me no every time I asked to go anywhere as a child. She knew me until I discovered her weak spot. If I told her I wanted to go on an adventure, she always said yes. And did I ever have adventures? Still do. Again, God is more ready to forgive the blotted page of endeavor than the blank page of surrender. Isn't that the attitude of a generation that was mentally equipped to take us through some of the worst years in modern history? World War I, the stock market crash in 1929, followed by 10 years of the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl that caused famine and starvation. After that came World War II and finally the Korean conflict, all within a 50-year span. During those 50 years, China eliminated about 78 million of their own people who had different political views than the dictator. It's happening again today. The Russians murdered 23 million of their own people who didn't accept socialism. The Russians are at it again in 2022. In just 6 years, Germany killed 12 million citizens who looked different, thought different, or believed differently than their leadership thought was pure. During that same half century, 8 million native peoples in the Congo died due to Belgian imperialism. In a single 3-year span, Japan eliminated 5 million civilians whom they considered less human than themselves. Turkey did its share of ethnic cleansings by annihilating 1,200,000 Armenians, 800,000 Greeks, and 500,000 Assyrians who didn't believe in God the way they did. They still hate each other. Others in the Middle East are back up to their old tricks. Like my grandma used to say, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving isn't for you. Don't even get me started about designer diseases that have been released into the population recently to remove the sick and the elderly. They're going to make more. Together during those 50 years, those wars and purgings wiped out nations, eroded bank accounts, and severely culled the population of the earth by about 130 million people. During the first half of the last century, many Christians of the day persevered because they were taught to live out the blotted page of endeavor more than the blank page of surrender. We got through those hellish 50 years because people were raised to go for it, to live large, to fail and to get back up. During that half century of death and destruction, automobiles and airplanes were invented. Jet engines screamed to life. Rockets roared. Even computers are dreamt up by these amazing people. It was also the birth of rock and roll. The worst of times seemed to bring out the best in people who live by the creed, God is more ready to forgive the blotted page of endeavor than the blank page of surrender. They wouldn't fit into today's passive, politically correct society. They'd be shocked and ashamed at how we, their children and grandchildren, have allowed ourselves to accept the rules of such a sheepish culture. Quote, one night I was laying down. I heard Mama and Papa talking. I heard Papa tell Mama, let that boy boogie woogie, because it's in him, and it's got to come out. John Lee Hooker, Boogie Chillin', 1948. Our parents and grandparents were taught to do something, do anything. Just get up and keep moving. Come out of your shell and let your light shine. Fail 10,000 times, but don't wait for life to come to you. Get out there and embrace life. Get out there and live it with all you've got. They encourage their kids to make mistakes and to learn from them, to endeavor, but never surrender. How much better would our world be today if our churches, our ministries, our Sunday school teachers, our preachers, our parents, our coaches, and our leaders got away from the self-limiting teachings of what's socially acceptable? What if they taught us to fill in our blotted page of endeavors? What new innovations would arise? What adventures would we enjoy? So until the day you die, remember that your heart, your resilience, your tenacity, your love, your passion is what impresses God. So push like hell. God knows you're going to make your share of mistakes, like those Bible greats of Hebrews 11. He also knows that your life is a gift to this world. We only have a short time to shine. Now is our time to boogie woogie. Solomon is telling us that every moment you take breath, everything you do, every project you take on, every challenge you face, no matter how many times it takes, live and give with all your might, because someday, you don't know when, the grave is going to catch up with us. He's saying that as long as you're still breathing, you've been given a second chance to live life to its fullest. Just get started again. The real heroes of the faith are men and women like you, people who fall and fail but get back up and keep moving toward their goal. Like us, they found a way to fill out their blotted page of endeavor and never give up on their calling, never surrender. That's why they have a highlight reel that shows up in Hebrews 11. Like Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 9, we don't know exactly what we're going to face in life. We may win or lose, and none of us know exactly how much time we have left. So live life now. Get out there and live, give, love, invent, explore. Experience, write, sing, play. It's time to rock and roll. Make those mistakes and learn from them. Keep motating, keep iterating, keep learning. But for God's sake, brush yourself off and keep moving, because death is chasing you down like a linebacker. Remember that every day you live is a second chance, so live the hell out of your life. Live it for those who can't. Now is your one and only chance to live your dream. Jesus Christ gave his life so you can have a few second chances. And that is what I wanted to say about life, death, and second chances. God bless.